Greetings everyone, we are from Group 8. I am MACKENZIE along with my team will be presenting about our group task that is called the analysis of the risk factors as business opportunities between South Korea and Sri Lanka. Basically, for this group task, Jovan Electric Corporation Sendirian Berhad's top management has assigned us to study and prepare a comprehensive report to analyze the two potential countries as business opportunities, which means the company is planning to expand its business. Our group has decided and agreed to choose two countries with completely different economic backgrounds. Our chosen countries are Sri Lanka and South Korea. In order to identify the best country for Jovan to expand its business, we are required to study several risk factors in the chosen countries. In short, these are the topics that will be covered throughout the whole presentation.
South Korea. The risks that Jovan must face when they decided to expand the business in South Korea are their capital. South Korea recently have limited their inflow of foreign capital. Since the world still faces financial crisis in the moment, like other countries, South Korea also slowed the rise in consumer expenditure. When the expenditure decreasing, the purchasing power that consumers have also been limited. The demand for electronic and electric goods and services will also decrease. As Jovan offer that kind of services, they will also affected. Besides, South Korea is a global nation and have listed in top 10 in rank of import. That means the competition between multinational companies like Jovan can be higher than expected. As for Sri Lanka, Jovan will have to face their policy problem. For this year, Sri Lanka still maintain their interest rate, which is higher than South Korea. When interest rate increase, it involves a lot of money. Jovan need to pay more for their services. Besides, their limitation, the Sri Lanka limitation on the basic supply also cause risk to company if they decided to invest in Sri Lanka. Main services like transportation have put on hold. It can cause hassle to consumers to moving around. If this indirectly might affect the sale of Jovan. Also, Sri Lanka is one of the countries that have expertise in electronic sector. In another word, the country might prefer using their expertise into the fullest rather than pay more for the same service. If I will have to choose between this country, I rather choose South Korea. This is because South Korea more modern, organized and stable. As investors sometimes want stabilities, and for Jovan, it is best they play safe and enjoy the profit. Also, Sri Lanka more to export-oriented country, so for we want to import these services into their country, it's a bit riskier. Next is currency control. For South Korea, lately they have wider restriction of currency as they have more focusing on handling global financing crisis. They also have limit the foreign exchange future and derivative either in domestic bank or foreign bank. They also to control Indian trade by reduces the maximum allowed trades. They also make it clear in the currency control for importer or exporter to use foreign currency in purchasing or paying debt have been cut. While in Sri Lanka, their government have decided to decrease the maximum individual can possess in foreign currency. Their government also realized that they are unable to fund the import. They also insist that all transactions in or out the nation must be converted to Sri Lanka currency, which is Sri Lanka rupees. They also have to prohibit the export of foreign currency for 6 months since their currency have fluctuated. In comparison, South Korea is more prepared to accept any multinational company like Joven to expand their business compared to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka already have difficulty within their country. They even cannot afford to fund any import activities because the deficit in their currency. Even if their control planning have pointed out this method. The volatility in their country make multinational countries like Japan afraid to place their product in Sri Lanka.
Next, I will continue the skill labor. According to our research, Sri Lanka currently facing a shortage of skilled labor. Many highly skilled labor Sri Lanka leaving their country because of the economic crisis. However, to overcome the shortages, Joven could consider in transferring the existing skilled labor to Sri Lanka. According to each market, Malaysia decided to hire migrant labor by hiring Sri Lanka workers. Therefore, Joven can take this as an opportunity to expand its business. For South Korea, it is not foreign to us that South Korea is experiencing a demographic crisis that leads to labor shortages and greater welfare spending. Lots of South Korean communities tend to not have kids or even not marry at all. As a result, South Korean businesses seek additional migrant workers to relieve the labor shortages. To overcome the skilled labor shortages, South Korea will increase more highly educated foreign workers. The government decided to allocate 90% of the entrance to every industry, and one of them is the manufacturing electronic industry. As a result, Joven can take this opportunity to expand its business as it will beneficial to Joven's existing workers. We can see both countries are experiencing critical shortages of skilled labor. However, Joven will expand its business to South Korea, since South Korea has a better understanding of the electronic sector. Indirectly, educated South Korean citizens will be working for Joven, and Joven can improve its product by taking example from South Korean brands like Koe and Kuku. Next, we will analyze the two countries from the aspect of facilities to expand our business. Non-availability of computers and network facilities in Sri Lanka. Networks can allow businesses to reduce expenses and improve efficiency by sharing data and common equipment such as printers among many different computers. According to Madhubhashini, Sri Lanka has a very low percentage of internet users compared to other countries, with just 13.1%. Joven might be a bit of struggle to approach the customers. Secondly, facilities for employees. A workplace must offer a safe and healthy workplace for employees and must consider their welfare needs. For example, according to World Socialist 2022, postal workers had to put in extra time to do the task for each day, but their monthly overtime compensation is only allowed for 125 hours. Therefore, Joven must take into consideration in expanding its business in Sri Lanka. For South Korea, launching a firm typically costs 221,225 ringgit, which includes beginning charges as well as legal fees. Joven might not be able to use the current facilities since it will require them to pay taxes, and in the meantime, it will cost Joven to get new facilities. Secondly, managing facilities maintenance. Facilities management is a profession that integrates a variety of disciplines to guarantee the physical environment's operation, safety, comfort, and efficiency. According to Chow 2022, South Korea requires some employers to have rest area. Joven will need to manage its facilities maintenance since South Korea has obligate rest facilities installation and management criteria. As a comparison, Joven will expand its business in South Korea since there will be a lot of benefits. As South Korea offers its enterprises a wide variety of market opportunities, particularly in industry like electronic, even though it will cost a lot. The main reason is because their business culture. Loyalty, generosity, honesty uprightness, modesty, and respect are all highly valued traits in South Korea.
Next, infrastructure. The word infrastructure can be defined as basic systems and services such as transport and power supplies that a country or organization use to work effectively. There are two factors that affect the infrastructure in Sri Lanka. First is debt crisis and the second one is economic crisis. The debt crisis in Sri Lanka, which prompted political turmoil and a change of government, is the outcome of debt built up, poor domestic policies, and outside shocks. Sri Lanka has always relied on borrowing from outside to get it through its financial challenges. Next, economic crisis. Majority of Sri Lanka's reservoirs were critically low in water. Even though more than 40% of the country's electricity come from hydropower, it affects the electricity and electronic industry to growth. Next, we talk about infrastructure in South Korea. Growth in technology. Consumer electronics, including smart TVs, refrigerators, air conditioners, and other appliances, are an essential component of the trend towards smart offices and smart homes that has merged with the advancement of technology. Consumer electronics in South Korea account for around 67.3% of the country's whole electronic market, which the middle and high income groups being the main consumers. Now we move to the Sri Lanka and South Korea outflow graph. As we can see, South Korea recorded higher value compared to the Sri Lanka. In 2021, South Korea recorded the highest value at 60,820, and it was the highest among the 5 years, while Sri Lanka recorded 17 million only due to the debt crisis and economic crisis.
I will be talking about the history of the political risk and market imperfections between the two countries. First off, South Korea. It is historically proven that North and South Korea are sharing the same language and traditional culture. However, their modern history has been tainted with conflict and regional division. Tensions erupted in 1950 because North Korea launched an attack to the south. It was to claim the region. The launching of the first fusillade in what would become a bloody 3-year conflict. The North region was being backed by China and Soviet Union. The war indeed ended in an uneasy truce rather than a peace treaty in 1953. The next one will be about the interference of chaebols in politics. Derived from a combination of the words che, which means wealth, and bol as a clan, chaebols are a core of entrepreneur conglomerates established in the early 70s. They are the sole contributors of South Korea's economic growth. Some of the biggest chaebols in South Korea are the Samsung Group, LG Corporation, and Hyundai Motor. Despite of their contribution towards the country, they are frequently linked to a corruption scandal related to chaebols. The anti-corruption laws that were enforced by the previous government, starting from Kim Dae-jung, the former president of South Korea, seems to not be able to decrease the level of the governmental corruption. Moving on to Sri Lanka, before the formation of the new government by Ranil Wickremesinghe, Sri Lanka was in an extremely critical condition. The political crisis began when Gotabaya Rajapaksa took place as the president in November 2019. Since the ruling of Gotabaya, Sri Lanka's economy has unraveled. The country was dealing with shortages. Mahinda Rajapaksa, which is Gotabaya's brother, recorded years of spectacular growth during his administration as the president of Sri Lanka. However, the so-called growth was tainted with corruption. The large-scale projects under his provision were only to benefit those who are politically connected. South Korea, also known as its power in monopolizing the trade market. When a leading export country implements a trade-linked policy within its own country, it will affect the global market price. especially the goods and services price. For example, if South Korea imposes an export tax, the global market price will rise because the exporter will supply less, which means a monopolist can raise its profit by restricting supply to the market. Sri Lanka is currently dealing with an economic crisis due to the unstable political condition. Hence, the country is suffering from an unsustainable debt load because of the weak trading activities in the country. Inconsistent and unpredictable policies, including taxation, has caused the foreign investment in the country to decrease. Generally, the government supports import substitution. Those who import to Sri Lanka face high import duties. The import tariff has been Sri Lanka's primary trade policy instrument. In 2010, the average applied tariff for industrial and consumer goods in Sri Lanka was 9.2%. However, less than 30% of Sri Lanka's tariffs on industrial and consumer goods are subject to WTO rules, which mean that tariffs on those goods can be raised to any level. This is one of the reasons why the country is experiencing an unstable balance of payments. In comparison, South Korea has a higher 2021 corruption index, which is 62, than Sri Lanka, which is 37. The higher the value of corruption index means lower cases of corruption. This means that if the value of corruption index of a country approaches 100, that country is considered as clean and credible. We can see that the corruption index of South Korea is increasing steadily after they recorded a fall of corruption index in 2016. On the other hand, Sri Lanka recorded a steady constant of corruption index from 2017 to 2020. Therefore, the monopoly power of South Korea will affect the trading policy. Joven should not worry about the trading policy because the government of South Korea will protect and oversee companies from being discriminated. Sri Lanka's trading policy has imposed high importing duties because the country has been profiting from the taxes implied. The tax applied on the industrial goods may be raised to any level because Sri Lanka is not subject to WTO rules. If Joven were to operate in Sri Lanka, they cannot gain more profit because Sri Lanka's trading is more on importing.
GDP is the changes in the value of all commodities and services generated by an economy, as well as the economic production of a nation, while taking price fluctuation into consideration. When the real GDP growth increases, it is a good sign of the economy health. The expected real GDP growth for Sri Lanka and South Korea are forecasted by the International Monetary Fund. The data shown will be from 2032 to 2035 to show the trend. As we can see, Sri Lanka in the negative value of the real GDP growth rate in 2022. This is due to the recovery of economy from the COVID-19 global outbreak disaster. Sri Lanka has the largest fall in GDP at negative 8.7%, worse than the South Korea. Due to the serious balance of payments issue and unmanageable debt, Sri Lanka is experiencing slow economic development. The most recent South Asia Economic Focus and the Sri Lanka Development Update forecast a 9.2% real GDP decline in 2022 and a further 4.2% decline in 2023. Sri Lanka's economic forecast is significantly unclear due to the unstable political environment and the worsening imbalance in the fiscal, external, and financial sectors. Moving on from the graph, Sri Lanka's real GDP growth is forecasted to be at negative 3% in 2023, increase to 1.5% in 2024, and 2.6% in 2025, which are a good signs for Sri Lanka economy. The South Korean economy is expected to rise by 2.7% in 2022 before dipping to slightly under 2% in 2023 and 2024. Private spending and investment are expected to slow down in reaction to a slow property market and poor increase in disposable income. The prediction 2.6% economic growth in 2022 will slow to 1.5% in 2023 as a result of weaker private spending and decreased foreign demand. As South Korea increased defense cooperation with the US and North Korea attempts to advance its nuclear weapon development, inter-Korean tensions will worsen. To defend its own economic interests, South Korea will avoid supporting the US in its conflict with China. The real GDP growth is, however, expected to decrease to 2% in 2023 and increase to 2.7% in 2024, then decrease to 2.6% in 2025. In comparison, even though both have positive real GDP growth value for 2024 and 2025, the South Korea seems more promising than Sri Lanka. The exchange rates for Sri Lanka and South Korea are free-floating, where it will fall and rise depends on the supply demands in the foreign exchange market. The Sri Lankan rupee is forecasted to depreciate against ringgit Malaysia at the rate of negative 8.33% between year 2022 and year 2023, negative 13.64% between year 2023 and year 2024, but slowly appreciate to negative 8.42% between year 2024 and year 2025. The low appreciation rate of Sri Lankan rupee from 2022 to 2025 is not surprising because inflation, interest rate, unemployment rate, and GDP deflator are some macroeconomic variables that show economic condition in Sri Lanka. You can see that the South Korean won appreciation rate against ringgit Malaysia every year is 0.75% between year 2022 and year 2023, 0.82% between year 2023 and year 2024, 0.55% between year 2024 and year 2025. South Korea increased base rate by 25 basis points to 3.25%. In an effort to lessen pressure on the economy and credit market and maintain inflation control, the Bank of Korea decided to decrease the rate of tightening. We can expect that the Bank of Korea to reduce the interest rate, which will cause in the increase of demand for goods and services as credit becomes more accessible. In comparison, slight depreciation in 2023 and appreciation rate in the years ahead makes South Korea more attractive than the Sri Lanka. The reduce of interest rate in South Korea offer export a competitive advantage in the foreign market. On the other hand, the yearly currency depreciation in Sri Lanka can reduce living standards, weaken economic growth and increase deflation, even though depreciation can also strengthen domestic producers and increase aggregate output. This will be a high risk for German electric company if we are to expand our business in Sri Lanka. As a result, when considering the expected exchange rate of country against the ringgit Malaysia, South Korea is unquestionably a superior area to build our business. To summarize the analysis of several risks, my whole team members have agreed that German electric companies should expand their business in South Korea. According to our analysis, South Korea is a better option when compared with Sri Lanka because of the risk from the factor of the exchange rate of currency, labor, facilities and infrastructure are better than Sri Lanka. For example, South Korea is highly developed technological nation with high levels of technology adoption. Besides, the people of South Korea are highly educated and they place a strong priority on humility, integrity and respectfulness regardless of local or foreign level compared to Sri Lanka. That's all from us. Thank you.